What's up, Skirt Sub Squad?
Did you just take my line? It's Samantha.
And Melissa.
I'm going to actually tell you guys how it is right now.
Ooh.
It was so funny.
We couldn't even make it up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to wear it in public.
And she looks at me and she goes, that's what Jesus is for.
We are about normalizing things that are hard to talk about.
So I was like, deer in
I know.
headlights, skirts out. But keep your panties on. What's up, Skirt Up Squad? It's Samantha.
And Melissa.
And I think I said quad and not squad, but maybe you guys won't notice.
Oh, speaking of quad, I have been continuing to work out. I did take a 3-day break, but I'm back now
What?
again as of last night. Yeah, so I've been working out consistently for 2 weeks now. That's not very
Yes,
long,
ma'am.
especially with a 3-day break.
One more week makes a habit.
Yeah.
So, yes, ma'am. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you.
Yeah. Thank
Still
you.
feeling good about it?
Thank you. Yeah, I was feeling great because I lost 6 pounds in the first first week
Damn.
and a half. Maybe it's been 3 weeks. I don't know. But then in the last 3 days, and I had a thing last night. I'm pretty sure I'm about to just start my period, and that's part of why I've been bloating. I gained so much back in just 3 days. And I'm
Oh,
like,
well,
I thought
remember
I
that
was
muscle also gains weight. So as you work out more, you see that incline.
kind of not when you have 50 pounds to lose.
Maybe. I don't know. I think it's normal.
You're not wrong. There's probably
Yeah, I think there's going to be that
a
fluctuation.
a fluctuation. That's the word.
Yeah. Okay, so Valentine's Day was this last weekend. So this is the episode coming out after Valentine's. And I asked you before we hit recording kind of how that went. And we didn't get really far into it until before you were telling me about how you've been really into the videos about dating.
Since you got me thinking about dating the other day, I'm not ready to yet still. I'm just not. But I have been obsessively watching these matchmaker videos online, and all of these, they always have all these tips and tricks, and it's just really interesting to listen to. But one of the things that obviously keeps coming across, and this is what I had just said to you before we hit record, was they all consistently say you have to have your shit together. You can't be going and looking for Mr. Right or Mr. Somebody who wants to help you elevate as a person if you're not elevated, or we're elevating yourself anyway. Obviously we're never going to be perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But I just felt I feel like I'm in a good place, just trying to get there. But I think you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. And I'm not saying that it's wrong or that I disagree with working on yourself before you find a partner. But then you also made the comment of, but I don't want to do that and then end up losing 10 years, 5 years, working on myself to, be ready. And I just don't know that I agree with that anymore. I think maybe in the beginning of us podcasting, I probably would have agreed with that and believed that. But I feel like now with everything that we've learned, I think that it's more about understanding yourself than being that version of yourself. So today, when we start talking about the attachment styles, I think that it's more important to understand your attachment style and understand your behavior and why you have that behavior so that you're at least cognitive about it and can start adjusting that if that's what you need to do, rather than avoiding a relationship until you have it under control, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I agree with you. I think it's really important to know who you are and to understand how you receive love and give love and all of the things that we've been learning. I want to make a distinction. I agree with you. If I were to have something amazing come into my path and I were to have a block up, also I know that there's something to be said for already having a block, and then things can't come into your path because the universe won't send it to you.
Right.
So I don't feel like I'm at that in that particular I think I'm more just like, I really, really, really want to focus on me. Because my whole life, it's been you have to have a partner, you have to get married, you have to have kids. I mean, I remember being 20 years old, turning 20, and standing in the kitchen. I went home to visit my parents. I was living in Ohio at the time, and I went to Kentucky and to visit them. And my dad just like, "What are you doing to try to date and find a companion? Well, how are you going to get married? Like, you're not even doing anything." I just remember crying, and I was 20. That's so young.
Mm.
And so, like, I just, I'm finally at a place where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just be really happy with myself for a minute here. Um, and I'm okay with that. I'm not, but I also like, I will say this. I do love that you were like, "Hey, when are you going to be dating again? When can I set you up?" You kind of were like, "No, we're not waiting a year." And then I said, in the end, I finally said the fall, and that felt good to me, and it still feels good.
Good.
But I like that it's like,
There is
it's not like
a
a,
date to check in. There is a date
it's a
to,
goal. It's a real goal. Yes.
yeah, a tangible goal. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's not like, "Oh, I just got to work on myself. I don't know. I'm not quite, I don't know. I'm not perfect
And
yet."
then
It's not
never
like
do it
that.
because like there's not a
Yeah.
plan in place.
Yeah, it's more like I'm gonna use every second that I have until the fall to become as whatever I can become, and that makes me happy.
I like
And
that. And that is a perfect way to think about it and look at it.
okay, good. You do
See?
like it?
We just gotta like chat it out sometimes. And then
I
the
love
answers
you.
come.
It's true. It's true.
And this is literally the perfect episode to like follow up on because this is the second time we've talked about it. I think we talked about it last episode too. But it's like the perfect episode to follow up with that because this episode we learn about attachment styles, how we got them and how it affects us in all aspects, our relationship with ourselves, our romantic relationships, work relationships, like all the things. And so it'll be fascinating to hear how maybe you particularly, Melissa, responded then to maybe how you would respond now, because she also makes the point of what you learned can be unlearned and then relearned, and that we're constantly changing. And so I wonder if where you were then is different than now, and what that might look
Oh, I
like.
can't wait to hear it again
Yeah.
because I know I'll be listening to it and having it'll be a completely different lens that
Yeah.
I'm seeing it through, seeing
Yeah.
life through.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Do you just want to go ahead and
Have her take it away.
We are here today and we're so excited to
we are
meet
so
with
excited.
Bev Middleman.
Yes, she is a relationship and attachment trauma practitioner and the founder of Securely Loved. Did I get that right?
You did. Thank you, ladies. I'm so happy
Yes.
to be here. Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Thanks
We're
for finding
excited.
us. We're so excited. Like I said, our listeners hear me talk and bring up the attachment styles so many times in so many episodes, and I don't actually know what I'm talking about. But I just really think that it really affects all aspects of our life. And so I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And that's actually a really good place to start, right? Because a couple of things. The thing about attachment styles is that everyone has one.
Hmm.
Okay.
So it affects all of us. We all have an attachment style, which is really just a way in which we form emotional bonds with other people. Right.
Right.
And the second point that you bring up is that how it really affects us. It affects us to such a huge degree, starting with the relationship that we have with ourselves. So,
Hmm.
our self esteem, how much we trust ourselves, self worth, all of those things. And then also the quality of the relationships that we're able to build with family,
Mm,
friends, colleagues, coworkers, and romantic partners.
Hmm.
So,
right.
it impacts us hugely. So, yeah, great topic to talk about, and one of my favorite topics.
I would
Yeah.
hope so.
How, Bev, did you get into this? What triggered this journey?
Yeah, so, I mean, I've always been in professional development, personal growth. I've been in the field for more than 25 years, but attachment styles came to my attention years ago when I was on my own journey. I think it was like in my early 40s. I'm almost 50 now. So in my
Okay.
early 40s, like a lot of women, we start going through this period of seeking clarity. trying to understand things. And it does actually coincide oftentimes where there's a shift in hormones and
Mhm.
a lot of responsibility in life and whatnot. And so I was going through a very difficult time, like a lot of women in my early 40s. And I had sought out different modalities. And I think that
Yeah.
different therapies work very well at different times for different people.
That's
But
actually so true, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. And I will say that, for example, EMDR, eye movement rapid desensitization, was very helpful for me for some of the trauma that I was holding on
Me
to.
too.
And at the same time, I found the work on attachment styles. And for me, that was the missing piece of the puzzle. For me, it brought everything together and it allowed me to start to understand, why do I think the way that I do? Why do I feel this way? Why do I behave this way? Especially when I'm feeling unsafe or I'm in conflict. I had some very specific behaviors that I thought were just
Mhm.
quirks.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
just Bev.
You're like, that's just how
Um,
I am, or that's just how they are.
Yeah.
yeah. But in reality, when you actually dive into this work, you realize that it all goes back to your childhood. It
Okay.
goes
Mhm.
back to the patterns that you learned very early on for how to give and receive love, what felt safe, what didn't,
Mhm.
and the strategies that you developed as a young person, which follow you into adulthood,
Mhm.
to try to keep yourself safe and ultimately to try to regulate your nervous system, although we're not always so great at that. So this
Right.
work had a massive positive impact on my life. And so I just, spent the last chunk of my years of my career focused here, because it was the time that I started speaking about this. Not many people were talking about attachment styles, and it is incredibly important and
Yeah.
impactful.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
something that I wanna bring into schools because I think it is
Mm.
that important. But I'm gonna be honest, like, the first time that I even learned and, like, looked into attachment styles, I was in therapy, and it was a few years ago, and I was devastated, actually. Like, it was really, like, uncomfortable for me and very upsetting to learn what my attachment style was, that, like, I actually ignored it and put it to the side for a while until I could
Really?
process, like, yeah, until I could process what it meant. Yeah, it was really upsetting. I was like, oh, like, I don't know.
Oh,
It was
like you
really
had a
I hear this often. It's a truth. Like any level of truth, it can be very confronting,
yeah.
right? And you have
okay.
to be ready to hear that. But are you willing to share what that
Yeah.
style is? I'm just curious.
Yes, I was, what is it? Dysregulated. It's when you have both of anxious
Anxious?
attachment and
Disorganized.
disorganized. Yeah.
Disorganized. It's also called fearful avoidance. Yeah.
I haven't heard the fearful avoidance.
Yeah. Which
Yeah, I
by
was gonna say
which
I
by the
haven't heard
way,
disorganized.
yeah. So Samantha, by the way, I had the same attachment style for many, many years. It's very, very confusing.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So what was it like for you to like learn that? Because like literally I was so upset.
Yeah, well, I think at that point I was sort of at the end of my rope, and
Mm.
so it was
Mhm.
sort of
Me
like I
too. Me too.
was,
That's why it was so upsetting.
I guess, but for me it was more like a relief. It was sort of like, okay, this could be what I've been looking for to explain, because I
Mm.
guess in my mindset when I could figure out, okay, this is what I'm going through and this is when the biggest thing is I realized that attachment style is learned behavior.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So we're not talking about mental illness. We're not talking about like personality disorders. It's learned behavior, which also means it can be unlearned and relearned.
Yeah.
So it gave me,
Neuroplasticity.
yeah, exactly. So it gave me a path forward. Like I wasn't quite upset about it, but I sort of became really interested in all elements of this because
It
I
sounds
realized,
like you took it as a piece of information and you're like, wow, I can do
Mhm.
something with this.
Yeah,
Mm.
Okay. So
yeah,
do you mind if we just kind of go over, because I know we've all heard of
yeah.
avoidant and secure. Do you mind? I know there's 4 attachment styles. Can we go over what they are for everybody just to kind of set a base for
And
what
just
we're
kind
Yes, there are in fact 4 styles, but I generally talk about it in the context of there's 2 broad
of
categories.
mm,
So first, there's someone who has a secure attachment
mhm.
versus someone who has an insecure attachment. So at the highest
That makes
levels, we
sense.
have 2 broad categories. Now, in North America, we like to say that the statistic is about 50-50, but I've seen variations. I've seen, you know, variations of the stats being 40% are securely attached, 60% are insecurely attached. But for the purpose of this conversation, we can say it's about 50-50.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So, what does this actually mean? Well, someone who is securely attached would mean that they grew up in a home where they received predictable, sustainable level of emotional attunement from their caregiver. It's not that the caregiver was perfect. It's not that the caregiver gave the child everything that they wanted, but the child learned safety.
Okay.
So the child learned to be able to predict that the caregiver was there, right? The caregiver would respond to their needs predictably. The caregiver also taught in the process of this, of recognizing emotions, the child learns generally what we call emotional regulation.
Mhm.
And this is an incredibly important life skill. And I think this is what you were saying, Samantha, like you want to bring it into schools. Emotional regulation is incredibly important, and not everyone learns this, but it's about identifying your emotions
Mhm.
and then being able to process it without a volatile reaction,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to communicate that while still remaining relatively calm,
You
right?
know, that's
Without
the other thing. I hadn't seen an emotion chart until I was 30 years old.
right. Right. And so, we tend to think that emotions are happy, sad, angry, frustrated. Like there's a lot of nuances, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
To this day,
when
I
you
have a hard time sometimes going deeper. And anyway, so I'm excited if Sam can get some stuff like this in the schools. But yeah, if children could learn this stuff, it'd be such a
yeah,
great foundation,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like there's more than just sad and
yeah,
happy and angry.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, absolutely. And the second part of that, and this is a little bit of the mindful work that I have seen some schools doing this in the younger grades, and I applaud them. But what a lot of people don't realize is that our emotions are there to guide us.
Mhm.
Right? So, and our emotions speak to us through various ways, not just through our thoughts, but also through physical sensations in our body.
yeah.
And it took me many years to learn that. And so, there are some that are very obvious. Like if your heart starts to beat fast and you start to sweat, it'll probably tip you off that I'm nervous,
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right?
Sure.
Right, like but emotions actually speak to us through our body. And when we can learn to recognize those signs, those symptoms, those signals, right? We can address them, right? And we can
Mhm.
oftentimes talk our way through situations and get to a much more favorable result. Mu-
Right.
Right. So our nervous system has two modes, right? We have rest and digest, and then we have fight or flight.
Mhm.
And when our emotions are really not regulated, we spend an enormous amount of time in this fight or flight, right? We're very jumpy, or we're always trying to fight or flight is only two of them. There's also fawn,
Yeah.
Mm.
right? And
That's
freeze.
a whole nother topic that I want to talk about because also what I've learned is a lot of people aren't educated or know that there's also flop. And flop is what I have experienced and gone through.
So flop I would categorize as
As
freeze.
fawn. Oh,
Freeze.
okay.
Yeah, and freeze is such an interesting one. We see this in nature. Like there's certain animals,
Mhm.
for example, when they're under extreme threat, they play dead.
Yes.
I'm not. This is true,
Yeah.
and humans, when we're under, chronic amounts of stress and we are emotionally dysregulated, meaning overwhelmed or too disassociated from our emotions, we are in this fight or flight, fawn or freeze state. It's not a healthy state, and it's very unhealthy actually for us physiologically,
Mhm.
and
If I'm
it
not
causes
wrong,
lots
it's
of
heightened
issues.
cortisol, right? Because you're just
Yes.
always looking around your shoulder. What is next?
Mhm.
What's about trying to prep yourself.
Right.
Um,
So you're
which,
not
yeah.
calm. You're not calm. And I know we're jumping around a little
I
bit. I'll go
know.
back
Sorry,
to
guys.
no, no, it's okay. But
No.
but when you're not calm, your brain is not able to process rational thoughts when
Mm.
you're not calm. which means that oftentimes, like I'll use a simple example. If you're in conflict with someone and they say something that really gets you, like
Mm-hmm.
really like stabs you, you're gonna have very strong response and you're likely going to say something back that is outside of what you would normally say if you were calm and
Fair.
rational,
Mm.
Yeah.
right? And then you'll have the guilt hangover the next day, like, why
Mhm.
did I say that?
Mhm.
I
Yes.
didn't mean to hit so hard, right? With my words or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because when you're in that state, you actually lose your ability to think rationally and calmly. And
Mm.
so the when you're in that state, you have psychological changes, emotional changes, physiological changes, cortisol, like you mentioned. It's not healthy. But
Yeah.
because we haven't learned necessarily to regulate our emotions, many people spend so much time in that state. And then they end up with all sorts of medical issues.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And they're like, I don't know what's going on. Right. So we talk about how stress is really a silent killer. This is part of what we're talking about.
Mm.
Okay.
So I know I strayed off a little bit there.
I
No,
strayed
just
you
we kind
off.
of
So why does emotional regulation actually matter in the context of attachment styles? Because this is someone who is securely attached learns this really early on. They learn emotional regulation just by the interaction
Mhm.
with a caregiver who's emotionally attuned, right? So the caregiver who's emotionally attuned will recognize that the child is having a need. They will help them identify the emotion. They will acknowledge the emotion and they'll respond in generally a predictable way. Now,
okay.
doesn't mean that they will give the child the cookie every time they ask, but they won't be, they will respond in a kind, respectful way. The child grows up learning that, okay, I trust myself. I trust my emotions. I trust that I'm able to communicate my needs. And I trust that others around me are going to respond to me in a respectful, kind way. That's their blueprint. That's their modeling. That's all they've seen.
I love that
Right.
you took it, well, not you, like you're teaching us that it's not just about the children starting to perceive the outside world, but themselves as well. It's
Mhm.
like you everything is internalized in a positive way. I know that I'm putting out the right emotional, I guess, like tr-
Energy.
energy. There you go. Yeah. To get and be treated and receive like in this way, in a positive way or whatnot. It's very interesting because it's easy to always just kind of think, "Oh, well, my parents didn't treat me, I don't know, like I couldn't trust my parents." But it's like, "Well, wait, I also can't trust myself now as an adult." Right? It's just it's deeper than that.
No, it's actually it's a very astute point that you're making. What happens is that when we adopt these sort of early patterns and stories in our mind, what happens is long after our parents continue to say these negative things to ourselves, we start saying them to ourselves. We repeat
Okay.
the pattern. So
Okay.
this is quite common actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
very
you.
astute what you just said.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes.
Yeah, of course. So, it's really it's basic stuff in that in order to become emotionally regulated, you have to move away from the idea that emotions are bad or good. They aren't bad or good. And we tend to ascribe stories to them. Emotions are just emotions. So,
Mhm.
child, for example, who is angry because they don't want to take a nap, like a very young child is stomping their foot down. I'm not tired. I don't want to take a
Right.
nap. Right? There's a lot of different ways you can respond to that. So, if a mother says, take a nap because I told you so, I don't care if you're tired or not, it's pretty invalidating,
Yep.
right? Or don't talk to me that way, meaning I don't want to hear your emotions, or stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. That's a pretty clear
That's
message.
yeah.
Right. All of these messages, right, where we get as young children that this behavior is acceptable versus it's not.
Mhm.
But showing emotion is not a bad thing. So if a caregiver would turn around and say, I know when I was younger, I didn't like taking naps either. I get it, but it's for your health and it's important. So why don't you try and close your eyes and we'll see how it goes?
Yes, it's completely different. It's a whole different you validated everything.
Right. I didn't tell the child, okay, you rule the roost, do what you want.
Yeah.
But I also didn't invalidate them. So that's what we're trying to teach children. That's sort of the utopia. And these kids, when they grow up, they're generally very emotionally stable. You probably have a few friends in your life who are sort of like solid like a rock. They don't rattle easily.
No, I think
No.
we attracted people that are, just on the same psycho level as us.
I mean, yes, that's possible too, but like you would have come across some people who were like a
Of
little
course.
bit more like, they also, when it comes to particularly like romantic relationships, they're the ones who are very comfortable being in long-term relationships, marriages. They're comfortable being alone. They're comfortable
Mhm.
being in partnership. They see the benefit of both. They communicate well. They understand boundaries well. This is from an emotional standpoint, generally, this type of upbringing and someone who has a secure attachment has the best chance to have what we call a healthy mind.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
So that's we're gonna put a pin in that and go, that's sort of the utopia.
Okay.
Right. Then we move over to that other cohort of people, the 50% who develop what we call insecure attachment. Now, to be clear, attachment is on a spectrum. So it's not like everyone falls in this clear defined box, right? People are
Sure.
usually like a little closer to secure attachment, but they might have a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Oh,
Right.
I'm glad you said that because my exact mind is like, oh, I'm either or either.
And so it's so interesting too, and I say this with all due respect, but we do know that the true measure of a healthy mind is a level of flexibility, which is no, and I say this with respect because we use the same measurements also for like healthy bodies.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
your healthy physical body is mobile, it can move, right? Like
Mhm.
it
That
can,
is such
and
an interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, so as soon as you start to lose your flexibility, your range of motion, and you're stiff, and you can't, that leg doesn't work or that arm doesn't work, like you're not healthy, and so you're less healthy. So the healthiness of your mind is really very much dependent on that flexible thinking.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very often not like black or white.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, shades. I most of the time it's shades of gray, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the folks who are insecurely attached. So on the spectrum, this is where we get to the four styles because within the range of insecurely attached, we have three subsets, three subgroups. So all three of these are called insecure attachment styles. The first is the individual who is anxious, preoccupied. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then way on the other side of things is the individual who is dismissive avoidant. And then somewhere in the middle, it's a smaller cohort, it's about 10% of the population, have what Samantha, you and I talked about earlier in this segment, the disorganized
Mhm.
attacher, or also called fearful avoidant. Okay.
Okay.
So before I jump into those descriptions, I just want to make mention of the fact that while we said that everyone has an attachment style, everyone has a way in which they form an emotional bond, attachment styles are also not gendered, which
Mhm.
means that we have statistically the same amount of men or women who fall into each one of these categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
It is good to know, regardless of the internet memes that like to show that women are like this and men are like this, and that it's not gendered. We have people
Mhm.
on all sides.
Okay.
So the anxious preoccupied is often, especially in a romantic context, they are, and I think a little bit falsely categorized as needy,
Mhm.
Mhm.
attention seeking. They need a lot of validation. They need a lot of assurance. They're very insecure. They are generally the ones who are chasing after love. They have very low trust in themselves,
Okay.
and self worth. So they'll often, for example, use their sexuality, their beauty to gain attention.
Mhm.
Um, these are individuals who didn't get the necessary attention that they needed as a child. right? So either they had parents or one or two parents that were emotionally unavailable, or there were addiction problems in the home, or maybe the mother had too many children to mother after. Whatever it is, this child ends up in a pattern where they're chasing after love, right?
Okay.
And they start down a path of becoming overly congenial. They're the teacher's little helpers. They're the ones who are always standing next to mommy and ready to cook and do and be, and because they really just want the attention. So they perform,
Okay.
right?
Want to
So
become the favorite.
they want to become the fit. Well, they really just want any attention, right?
Mhm.
But like if they could stand next to mom while she's like making the spaghetti sauce and they can be of service to her, then they think mom will pay attention to her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they develop all sorts of strategies. And one of the interesting things is that when they're in conflict, their primary strategy, we talked about fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. What do you think their primary
And
go-to?
Fight. Oh,
Okay, it's
fawn.
both. No, you're both
Oh,
right.
okay.
You're both right. You're both right. So it's usually fawn first. So
Okay.
fawning is people pleasing. Right? So they
Got
become
it.
incredibly congenial. They really push down their own needs,
Mhm.
and they're very focused on their partner, right?
Okay.
Because their core wound is abandonment. They have felt abandonment, or when they were younger, it was a perceived abandonment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so for them to keep that connection, to stave off that abandonment wound, because to them that just would hurt beyond anything they could deal with emotionally. They move away from what we call our authentic self. They disconnect from their actual needs and they give
Mm.
everything and anything to this other person. In fact, in extreme cases, this is where we see codependency.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And so we see very early examples of this where, for example, a young child can be crying and a mother will say something like, wipe those tears off your face and put on a smile. Nobody wants to see a little girl cry. I don't know. I'm just
Sure.
something
Example.
invalidating. That would be where a very young child, even if they're nonverbal at that point, they would recognize that their mother doesn't approve of their behavior and that their behavior needs to change in that moment so that the mother is no longer angry with them. Because what's at stake here? What's at stake for the child is a connection to their caregiver. And that connection equals survival. So
Mhm.
when we are so young, 0 to 5, we actually as a species cannot survive without our caregiver. So
Right.
that connection to them is absolute survival. So you're now a child again, they're way too young to understand this, but we understand this as adults. They have a choice to make. I can disconnect from my authentic self or I can lose the connection. So if a child is truly upset about something, tries to communicate they're upset about something, and the parents like, I'm not having it, wipe off those tears, the child, if they want to make the mother happy and get the love from the mother, let's say, they will disconnect and pretend that they are happy.
Okay.
This is the start of it. I'm going to pretend. I'm not going to show my true authentic self because it's not safe. I will lose the love of my mother, or fast forward 30 years, my romantic partner. If I show my true self, it is not safe. So this
Okay.
is sort of the seedlings of that, right? And so these partners really do, like people who are anxiously preoccupied, again, they're dealing with this core wound of abandonment, or I will be excluded, I will be alone, I am not good enough, I am bad. These are some of those core wounds that they're carrying around, stories that they believe of themselves,
Okay.
right? They're much more, I would say, ripe to accept abusive type
Mhm.
situations. They're much more ripe to fall down rabbit holes of addictions and poor coping behaviors because they happen to feel, again, they are not emotionally regulated for the most part. And so when they do feel feelings, they tend to be really big and highly
Mhm.
volatile. And
Okay.
so, Melissa, you talked about how I said, what coping mechanisms do they use when they fight? And you said fight. So first they do fawn, then they fight.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so when fawning doesn't work, then they fight. So they are
Right.
fighters
Okay.
and they will fight. They also, interestingly enough, don't really understand boundaries. When I work with someone who's anxious, preoccupied, I have to actually teach them about boundaries. So they don't have boundaries for themselves because they're sort of, they look at it as I'm selfless.
Yeah.
It's
Whatever
not
you
that
want.
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, it's not that you're selfless, it's that you don't ascribe any worth to yourself. You give it away because what's important to you is to get the attention and love from someone else and not from
Okay.
yourself. So it's not that you're selfless, but because they don't understand boundaries, they actually can be like almost like miffed if you try to assert boundaries around them.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've had friends, for example, that just invite themselves to things or just show up at your house or something happens and they call you and they want to stay on the phone with you for 3 hours talking about the same thing over and over and over. Do you have friends like this?
I, I have in the past run into
Okay.
and known
So
people like that.
there's
Yeah.
reasons for all this, right? Because when something happens, they absolutely require the input from other people to help them figure out what they're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
to help them regulate their emotions, and help them make a decision because they have so little in the way of trust of themselves that they have to survey everyone in their immediate circle to go,
Mm-hmm.
what should I do?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So these behaviors stem from somewhere.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay. So that was anxious, preoccupied underneath the insecure.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Did I just throw a lot at the 2 of you?
No, it all
It
makes
was,
sense.
it does. It was really interesting. Yeah. So what would the other two again? We had, I think I missed the second one. The last one was disorganized and fearful avoidant.
The second one is dismissive avoidance.
Okay. Okay.
Now, as luck would have it, the anxious preoccupied and the dismissive avoidant tend to find each other and date each other. And they're not a
Okay. We
good
were gonna
couple.
ask if there were
Yeah.
some that like to find each other.
Yeah. Ideally, you're looking for someone, two secure people can have a solid relationship together. I mean, again, because of the spectrum, some people are secure with, some traits of anxious attachment. It depends on where you fall. But generally speaking, someone who is anxious preoccupied coupled with a dismissive avoidant will be very explosive in the beginning. It'll be tons of fun. There's
Yeah.
all of these qualities that the dismissive avoidant loves about the anxious occupied and vice versa, but it's absolutely the qualities that tear them apart too.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the dismissive avoidants also didn't grow up in a home where there was emotional attunement, but their experience was a little different. We're talking about people who were emotionally neglected. Okay.
Mhm.
So the anxious preoccupied had some love. They knew what love felt like. They knew what emotional attunement felt like. It's just it was inconsistent. It was unpredictable. They were sort of chasing after it. The person with who truly falls into the realm of dismissive avoidance, they were emotionally neglected for the most part, often left alone during their earliest years, especially to deal with difficult emotions. So this could be a child that grew up in a home where the family was very stoic, right? We don't talk about emotions or we just sweep everything under the rug.
Right.
A child who grew up in a home where they were a part of a high demand religion. There was a lot
Mm-hmm.
imposed on them in terms of expectations of you are to do this and not do that,
Yep.
regardless of what you felt. Children who are we talk about like mothers and their sons, and I've raised two sons. They're away at college now, so this is a hotbed topic for me. But we know that there are some mothers who, overcoddle their sons,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and yeah, this is problematic, right? Or parentify them, and so this is a problem. The child learns at some point in time that either they cannot expect for anyone to save them or provide emotional support or whatnot, emotional attunement, or the cost of that is too high. So maybe
Okay.
their mother was so overbearing that at some point they said, I'm never getting close to another woman again, or whatever it may be,
Okay.
Mhm.
right? The way I'm going to keep myself safe is I'm going to just keep to myself. So people who are
Detach.
detach, people who are dismissive avoidant are very much detached from their own emotions. That's their coping mechanism. There's sort of like a feigned, like a learned helplessness there. Like, why would I bother to ask anyone for help? No one's going to help me.
Okay. Okay.
Their emotional state is that they do afford themselves a great deal amount of trust, but very little to other people. They do not trust easily.
Okay.
They've been sort of let down, let down, let down. You know, they'll often come across as secretive. They want to protect their independence, their freedom. They need a lot of alone time when they're alone. So the anxious preoccupied person, when they're feeling emotionally dysregulated, will reach out to a group of friends to try
Okay.
and regulate their emotions. The dismissive avoidant will do the opposite. They will retreat into isolation and they can only regulate their emotions when they are alone. And for them, that felt safe because it's repeating the pattern of their childhood. They were alone. They
Yeah.
Mhm.
were left alone. So as a young child, I was punished in my room all the time. I don't even know what I did that was so bad, but I was always in my room,
Yeah.
left alone. And so to this day, I feel safest and calmest when I'm alone.
Mm.
Okay.
That's what's familiar for me.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have these subconscious comfort zones. So someone who is dismissive avoidant, again, is usually pretty detached from their own emotions, and they will, you know, they will also dismiss your emotions most of the
Mhm.
time. Relationships for them are quite scary. You know, not that they don't want love and connection, but they often feel that the cost of that is too high, the cost of their freedom, their independence. They don't want anyone to lean on them emotionally,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Because it's
No
sort
one
of
took care
like,
of them and they are not going to take
right.
care of other people.
Mhm.
They don't have the modeling for it. They don't even
Right.
see it as normal. It's sort of like, okay, I have this problem. I'm going to take care of it. You have that problem. You take care of it. I'll see you on Tuesday if you want.
Right. Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's their model, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah,
That's
they're
what I've attracted, by the way. Those are both my ex-husbands, and they're not bad people.
no.
They're dismissive avoidant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Oftentimes we sort of chastise the dismissive avoidant, especially the dismissive avoidant man, as being a bad person.
Mhm.
No, I think that they just simply they didn't learn how
Mhm.
to connect to their emotions.
Yeah.
And they didn't learn that, you know what, it's they
Or they
operate
learned it's easier not to be connected.
Yeah, I think that like I know
yes, you
we
did.
said that like this isn't genderized, but I feel like because men as they're raised are often told to not have emotions and not to have feelings, I feel like it would be more common maybe for them to fall into this category.
Yeah, so gender does play a role in how we socialize genders, I would
Okay.
say plays a role. But I myself was again a disorganized attachment, but heavily avoidant, heavily dismissive avoidant.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
and we
Yeah.
do see that. So I think again, they're very, very slow to warm up in
Mhm.
relationships. They trust
Yeah.
themselves, but they don't trust others.
That makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of it does make sense. They're afraid of feeling engulfed because at one point in their life they did feel engulfed, usually from their mother,
Mhm.
and the pain of that and the weight of that was crushing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I feel
Yeah.
like what I'm kind of learning and hearing, I feel like step one would be knowing your attachment style,
Mhm.
understanding your partner's attachment style. And then I feel like love language would come in. Like, I feel like once you know each other's like attachment, that you have to learn how to meet them. So, like, a love language at where they are. I could be off base, but I kind of feel like,
No, it makes
No,
sense to me.
you're not off base at all. So all of these theories about human behavior, they all intertwine, right? So
this makes
like
you very excited. Your face just like majorly lit up.
Well, because it's so interesting because there's always these really beautiful synergies, right? So, like, if I were to go through the four styles now, and I would say which of the five, love languages do you think this style would utilize first? You would start to understand a
Oh.
couple. They've researched
That's
this.
pretty funny. That's
Let's
actually, now that you say that.
Yeah, they've
Ooh, I would
researched
like to
this.
come back to that actually, because I wanna yeah, so, like, I wanna go ahead and, like, finish, like, our disorganized, fearful, avoidant, but I would love to come back
Yes.
and be like, how do you know
Yeah.
what you are besides
Okay.
just, like, trying to analyze your childhood?
Right. Okay. So let's put a pin on all those things, but great questions. Let's come back. So we're
I
gonna
love
finish.
it.
We're gonna finish with disorganized. So disorganized again is the smallest group. It's about 10% of the population has this what we call complex style. And what it really is Samantha, you already mentioned it. It's a combination style where you
Mhm.
have both anxious traits and dismissive avoidant traits. And it's very confusing for the person experiencing it and anyone around them.
Yeah.
And what it means is they're often called in a romantic context the hot and the cold partner. So they crave intimacy, closeness, but it elicits a great deal of fear when you get too close,
Okay.
right?
Mhm. And it's kind
Because
of like you can only love me the way I'm requesting and how I'm feeling, and anything like different is like when you start pushing them away and being like, "Nope, that's not safe."
Interesting. Or anything different, it's like, "Oh, they don't love me."
yeah, I mean, again, how far it depends on how far along down the
Okay.
spectrum they are, but all these
Fair.
things are true. And I want to talk about why this style emerges in
Okay.
childhood. Usually, we're looking at a child who was living in a highly unpredictable, chaotic environment. Let's say like a really high conflict divorce, a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, like a war zone. Or oftentimes we see that the child was abused. So it's very confusing. And this is where we talk about the disorganized part. The child develops or continues to want to move towards a caregiver for closeness, comfort, love, and support, because that's what children do, knowing at the same time that, let's say in this example, the caregiver is also physically hurting them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like,
That's
the
very confusing.
child's it's very
Yeah.
confusing, and the child that is being harmed, let's say a father is slapping their child, right, when he gets angry. The child is not able at a young age to say, "Well, that's my father's, shortcomings. He hasn't learned how to emotionally regulate." No, the child
Mhm.
doesn't have that critical thought. The child says, "There must be something wrong with me. I
Right.
deserved that." And so they keep going back to try and repair that. So they want that love, they want that soothing, they want to know, but then they get closer and they're smacked across the face,
Mhm.
metaphorically or in reality. And
Right.
so when that child grows up, becoming close with someone, true intimacy becomes terrifying.
Mhm.
Fair, because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's yeah.
Emotionally, possibly physically. If you couldn't trust your father, like, who can you really trust?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this is very, very confusing. So,
How do they
yeah.
act out
So,
besides pushing people away, wanting to be close and then pushing people away? Is there yeah.
there are some very distinct things for people who are, sorry, just fixing this up, who are fearful avoidant or disorganized. It's the same thing. The core wound there that they're really sort of grappling with is, I will be betrayed. So it's a
Ah,
Mhm.
betrayal wound. Now the problem here is that we talked about trust. So the anxious preoccupied doesn't trust themselves, they trust others. The dismissive avoidant, they trust themselves, but they do not trust others. The person who's disorganized, they don't trust themselves and they don't trust others.
got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. So it's real difficult and they just fear they really fear being betrayed. We see characteristics such as anger and rage. That's a big one. anger
Mhm.
and rage, because you're kind of in this state of like confusion, low level frustration, irritability. Hypervigilance is something we see in almost everyone who's fearful avoidant. So you're constantly looking around, you're constantly because you don't trust anyone.
Yeah, my key thing was, remembering things that normal people wouldn't remember. It was like hyper I thought it was just like a photographic
Hypervigilance.
memory. Yeah, remember Melissa Walker called it
I
out, and I
do.
was like, "Oh, shit." I thought that that was just, like, kind of photographic memory, and she was like, "No, that's a trauma."
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm not sure what it is that you're referencing, but for example, I'll talk about myself. If I walk into a movie theater, I immediately identify where the exits are. I
Mhm.
immediately like, I'm hyper vigilant. If I'm walking down the street, I know exactly who's in my periphery.
You choose a seat at the restaurant, you wanna have your back to the wall.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm,
Yes, exactly. And so why do I do that? Well, you know, we're as mammals, we're not all that different from other species, like just in terms of basic behavior. Like if you've ever seen, for example, a dog that was mistreated, like you walk into a pound, right, to adopt a dog, and you walk in and there's 12 dogs there, you can immediately see which dogs have been mistreated
Yeah.
mhm,
because of the way they approach you. Right? Because of the love that they give or don't give, because you can see they're scared or they're not scared. But as humans, especially when we're babies and young children, if we are mistreated in those days, we don't grow up to be the puppy that's loving and jumping on you. And
mhm,
like, we just don't. And
Yeah.
so, but recognizing all of this is to say that, okay, those are the strategies that I needed to adopt when I was younger to survive that situation. But I'm
mhm,
no longer in my home of origin. I'm not, and I can recognize that maybe some of the strategies that I hold today are no longer serving me, and I can make changes. And
mhm,
so that in itself, I think most people, again, I think Samantha, you mentioned this. Most people just say something like, "I that's just who I am."
mhm,
No, that's your trauma. Those are the blueprints that you were sort of
mhm,
etched into your subconscious really early.
mhm.
That's not the essence of who you are.
Yeah, what I've learned
Right.
is that your natural self is calm, peaceful, happy, and so that was also, like, a big, like, explosion in my brain, and now I understand it, but yeah, that was crazy to me.
Yeah, now you understand it, but you also can probably feel the difference,
Oh, yeah.
right? So when you start to understand this and really experience it, you can tell when your body moves from rest and digest state to your fight and flight state.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And so but before, I mean, I lived so much of my life in that other state that was my baseline.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I had it all backwards.
Yeah.
Um,
So did
but
I.
anyways, mm, but you know what? It's beautiful that you can now sort of recognize these patterns and say, okay, I can learn from here. And
Yeah.
another question that I get just all the time, people say to me, what if I still have some work to do on my attachment style? Which a lot of us do. Uh,
Mhm.
do I have to sort of become securely attached before I move into a relationship, a
Ooh, that
romantic
is
relationship?
a question we had
Mhm.
before, Sam.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if a romantic relationship is something you desire, right? And I always say no. Like, I first of all, open, honest authentication, like authentic communication is where it's at, right? Like have a
Yeah.
conversation and say, I still have these issues that I'm working through, but we find that people do their best healing when they're in partnership,
Oh,
Mm.
really?
right?
Kind of like an
Mm.
accountability, like if you're able to accurately communicate your needs and how need and are, like, you know, make sure, kind of like maybe is it like kind of like an accountability thing to grow?
It's definitely an accountability thing, but it's also that we typically pick partners who, again, are within our familiar subconscious, our subconscious familiar zone,
Mhm.
but
Okay.
who generally will trigger our deepest wounds.
Oh,
That's just,
interesting.
yeah, it's just something that we do.
Well, we're
And
used to
so
it.
we're used to
It's
it.
quote unquote safe.
It's quote unquote safe. And also what it's doing is that it's resurfacing things that are pushing us to remember that, okay, I still need to heal
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
Like this part isn't
Mhm.
quite healed, right?
Yeah.
And so, no, being in a relationship with someone, especially if you're both working on your attachment styles at the same time, like, and a number of other things, right? Like you spoke about love languages. You absolutely can do beautiful work together.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how do you know like what you are?
Okay, so excellent question. So usually when I'm describing some of these styles, usually people will have a moment of, oh, that sounds like me.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So someone's thought pattern, emotional pattern, usually the way in which they will enter into conflict with someone, those behaviors are usually pretty easy to identify, where someone falls.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do have like a really simple quiz online on my website. It's securelylove.com. It's free. You
Oh,
take the
wonderful.
quiz and it'll tell you where you fall. It'll give you your primary and your secondary style.
Ah. I wonder
Mhm.
I'll have to
So
take it.
yeah, go.
Though I feel like
Yeah.
it'll probably be different than what it used to be. Like I would imagine that it's not gonna come up with disorganized right now, right?
I mean, I think if you answer, to your best ability in how you feel today, you might no longer be squarely, disorganized. You might have moved the needle in one direction or another, right? So because
Mhm.
because it's not a fixed state,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? It's definitely not a fixed state. Now, when we are really young, from like 0 to 5 is when we are most suggestible. So those
Mhm.
earliest years is when we get this sort of I would say the foundational blueprints of this stuff. But then our experiences, our traumas, good, bad, all of this that happens throughout life, it does change us. And then our intentionality, right? So it's like if you intentionally try to work on, the health of your mind and understanding your own emotional patterns and that, just like if you intentionally decide that you wanna build more muscle on your arms and you go to the gym and you intentionally do it,
Mhm.
right? You can do it. So all of that plays a factor in really, like, where you're gonna end up
Yeah,
on the
Yeah.
attachment scale.
So
that
say you
makes sense.
understand your own personality style or attachment style, and say you're not in a relationship, but what are some things that you can look for to try to pull somebody that will uh,
Compliment you?
compliment you? But also, like, I would kind of imagine we just all want somebody who's secure, don't we?
Well, I mean,
I know that's
so
not possible.
Safe is probably perspective.
yeah, so there's a couple of really interesting things. Again, when you are emotionally dysregulated, or if you come from a home where you experienced a lot of chaos, your subconscious comfort zone will be around chaos. So
Yeah.
you have to recognize that pattern, which means when you meet someone and your heart is like, oh my God, they're for me, and you're all excited and you're someone who is emotionally dysregulated will go, "I just met the man of my life," and they're going to jump into it, and 2 weeks later, so there's all of these things that are I consider exaggerated,
Sure. Okay.
which I see as red flags
Okay.
Ah.
and signs of emotional dysregulation. So, to me, my definition of love should feel stable, should be predictable. Some people would say it's boring. I
Okay.
don't find it
Okay.
I don't find it boring. So someone who's truly emotionally dysregulated will find someone who is securely attached actually boring.
Yes, I think I've had this issue in the past, and I've actually probably let some nice guys go because they were
Mhm.
boring.
Oh
Right.
no. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and this is very common until you heal and you realize that, okay, boring is the wrong word. What they're doing is that they're not necessarily what's familiar to you is probably a level of chaos, maybe a
Yeah.
level of mystery, novelty, adventure. Like there's
Mhm.
certain things there that you like that you're not getting. But this idea of feeling butterflies in your stomach, that's actually, we talked really early at the top of this episode about how our emotions, how they communicate to us through our body. And
Yeah.
We can thank Disney for this little piece of bullshit.
Oh
But this
no.
whole, well, because this whole I feel butterflies in my stomach, that's actually your nervous system saying, there's something wrong. This is a threat.
Oh no, this is bullshit.
It is. So it is. So Melissa, now I'm gonna blow your mind. Okay. So
Okay.
close your eyes for a moment and think
Okay.
about this. Close your eyes. Have you ever this will only work if you've ever been on a roller coaster before. Have you been?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So go with me. You're on a ride to a roller coaster. You get all the way up to the top. You get to the top. You're sitting in the front row of the roller coaster. You look down. The cart is about to teeter down. You're just about to go over the edge and go down. What do you feel in this moment?
You're right. My stomach is like really tight and it's about to drop.
Yes. It's waiting for the drop. Yeah.
Are
And
you
butterflies.
feeling like and butterflies and a little bit nauseous and you're excited, but you're afraid
Yeah.
and this and that. And your
You're
body's
right.
going, don't do it. This is a threat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. You're right.
Yes.
It's that
Let's
feeling.
backpedal. Yeah.
Right. And
But also like,
so,
let's go. Right.
right. It's invigorating, right? It's invigorating, but it's also a response of, oh my God, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Like it's a
Interesting. You're
warning
so
sign. Yeah.
right.
Wait,
So-
so are you saying that if you are experiencing butterflies like on a date, that like really that's a red flag and you should really reevaluate like what you're about to do?
Probably
Yeah, I don't
within.
like I wouldn't say that butterflies is what you're looking for. What you're looking for is to feel safe and comfortable around someone,
Yeah.
right? Now, if during dinner they touch your hand and you feel a little spark, wonderful. But you shouldn't sit down across the table from someone and go, "Oh my God, my heart is beating so fast."
Right.
That right? Like you're just about to go down a roller coaster, right? Because so again, our body is very good at confusing excitement
Mhm.
and anxiety, threat. It feels the same way. So you have to become discerning in how to figure out these signals. But it's quite easy to see when someone is emotionally regulated versus dysregulated, right? So
Yeah.
pay attention to, how, like, if you're actively dating, pay attention to how they're treating other people. Pay attention to their level of communication and their level of volatility. Meaning, like, volatility refers to
Yeah.
the stability of their mood.
Okay.
Right? So if you leave the table to go to the bathroom, you come back 5 minutes later, they're, like, in a completely different mood.
Mm,
What just happened? This has happened to me before.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a red flag. That's like, I'm not sure what's happened, but I'm uncomfortable. I think I'm gonna end the night.
Okay.
Someone that doesn't respect your boundaries. Someone who doesn't respect your boundaries, you're generally dealing with someone, if we're gonna put it on the lens of attachment styles, is generally someone who's anxious preoccupied. Who
Okay.
wants
Yeah.
to move the relationship extremely fast because they want to lock you down. Right?
Got
They
you.
want to
Mhm.
they want to lock you down not because you're so wonderful and special, but because it's so important for them to have someone in their life, anyone,
Yes.
right? So they will move at the speed of light. And friends too will do this. I don't know if you've ever met.
Yeah.
Have you ever met a friend and they're like, "Oh my God, you're bestie. I'm gonna see you tomorrow, and then tomorrow."
Yes.
And I'm like,
Yes.
Like, I don't know you yet, but okay.
Or I
yeah,
just don't
and
have
we'll
the
spend the
space.
weekend together, and right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
these are people who are anxiously preoccupied. So they don't understand boundaries. They want to move at the speed of light. This is obvious. On the other front, on the dismissive avoidant side, someone who keeps the conversation at a very intellectual level, like a dismissive avoidant will avoid vulnerability, at least for the
Oh, I
first
have a
couple of
really good
months.
example. Can I share one with you?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, so without like saying names or anything, I was in a group of people last year and somebody said, "Hey, there's this song that was insane and it really touched me and I'm going to play it for you guys." So we play the song. Most of us are just kind of like, "Whoa, that's insane. Wow, that was just it really hit me or it struck a chord or whatnot. And then one person pipes up and goes, wow, it seems like they took their musical abilities and their influences from this genre and this genre. And the person who played the song was like, did you feel anything? And they're like, well, I mean, I guess. I don't know.
Ah,
Interesting, right?
Yes.
Interesting. I mean, there could be a lot of things going on there,
right,
right? Like
right,
the person could have been neurodivergent, which we don't know, like
right.
I
which
know
could
this
be a whole
person
other thing,
very well, and this person is
and they're not.
very, very avoidant.
Okay. Interesting. That's definitely it. So you can connect with people on different levels, right? You can connect with
Yeah.
them intellectually, physically,
Yeah.
emotionally, sexually. Like they will the dismissive avoidant will tend to connect intellectually first and sexually second.
100%.
Emotionally, right?
Okay.
So they'll be very quick to, for example, you'll have a great talk and then they'll sleep with you that night. And then 3 weeks later, they may think of calling you. And to them, nothing's happened. Like it was an exchange.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
we shared a meal, we had a good conversation, we had sex, it was good for you,
Interesting.
it was good for me. They don't ask if it's good for you, they assume because it was good for them,
Of course
right?
it was.
It was good for me. It was good for you.
Oh,
Great.
that's so funny.
You didn't stay the night because you're not going to stay the night. It's a dismissive avoidance. You're
All
never staying
right.
the night. And then they'll call you back when they want a repeat of that. Right.
Mhm.
So for them, it's a fair exchange.
Yeah.
The emotions really do come later down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's their point, right? Is that's what they're avoiding
Yeah.
Yeah, emotion.
Now, I know we're on time and I don't want to take up more of your time, Bev. So, as we're having this conversation and as I was learning about attachment styles, I will say that I did notice how it bled into pretty much all aspects of life. Like, I realized that my disorganized, leaning towards fawn mentalities and just being hyper vigilant and stuff, like, I drew to a work environment for most of my adult life in an animal hospital where the behaviors of the owners and the doctors was unpredictable, where it was very volatile, but I was always the one to like just make things right even if it wasn't my fault, and just like be on the good side. I was always the one like wanting to be the favorite and like the best. And looking back, I was like, man, that was a very unhealthy work environment.
I'm glad
Like,
you're saying this because relationships are, you're right, there's so much more than just
yes.
romantic.
Mm-hmm.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of reasons that a fearful avoidant would choose that type of environment. First, to work with animals, if they're more predictable than humans for the most part.
Oh, that's
Right.
interesting, Sam.
For the most part, right? Secondly, those that are on that fearful avoidance side, they really do crave high degree of novelty, solution seeking. They
Mhm.
need like they get bored very easily in
Mhm.
all regards, whether it be your career, whether it be,
Mhm.
sometimes your romantic partner, whether they're constantly looking for new adventures, new things. They like change, they're the ones that'll go, you know what? Tomorrow I'm gonna go to the paint store and I'm gonna paint that wall red. Like they like change because change was sort of the one thing that was always coming, right? That
Mhm.
was the
Yes,
standard.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting, they're also very empathetic people. So people who are abused, and I'm not saying you aren't, but a lot of people
Mhm.
who are abused end up with this particular attachment style. They become hypervigilant out of a need to
Mhm.
protect themselves. And what is hypervigilance? Hypervigilance is really like an extension of I'm empathetic. What it means is they become incredibly attuned to the energies, the
Mhm.
sounds, what they feel, what they hear, all of it, people around them. So I would be able
Predicting
to
what they need before it happens.
Yeah.
yeah, I would be able to discern like, the mood of people when I'd walk into a room. Can still do it. I could sort of
Mhm. Me
scan the
too.
room and feel the energy because I'm
Yep.
predicting, okay, that one's a threat. I'm going to stay away from that one.
Yep.
Oh, that one's
Yep.
in a bad mood,
Yep.
and yeah, so which is so interesting, right? But
Mhm.
that type
Yeah.
of work if funneled into the right environment, is very nurturing. It's very healing. And so we see a lot of people take that skill, because not everyone has that skill. And they work with animals, they work with babies, they work as nurses, they work because it is you're probably felt your entire life misunderstood.
Mhm.
I think that you probably have a very, very soft marshmallow heart with a much more difficult, we'll say, candy, hard coated, like outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the professional that we had on was like, oh, that's your hypervigilance, your trauma response was because working in the animal hospital, I just had to be the best and had to like know and remember everything. And they were like, how do you like remember all this stuff? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, photographic memory. And then it like, like, no, that's hypervigilance.
Yeah, that's how you learn to survive. Just so you
Yeah.
overperformed, right? So we talked about typically it's the anxious preoccupied person that overperforms. But don't forget, as the disorganized, you have traits of the anxious and traits of the avoidant.
Yeah.
And so perfectionism, overperforming, it really, the wound there is I need to earn my love.
Yeah.
Which
That's
also extends into
100%.
I need to earn my rest. I need to earn my peace. I need to earn my worth, right? It's a worthiness wound, is what it
Yeah.
is.
Maybe that's why I'm a workaholic.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a
Yeah, thank
long,
you.
like overdue conversation. So I'm so glad you found us, and I'm so glad that we were able to dive into this deeper. And I feel like there's so much more that we could do in a next one.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you
Excellent.
so much, Bev.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet both of you. I love what you're doing. Thank you for including me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Did you like the episode that you heard today? Great! Share it with a friend and don't forget to rate and review.